This week here on News 3 at 6, we are getting to know the candidates that want to represent the Brazos Valley in Austin. And this week we're speaking with House District 12 and 14 candidates. Kyle Cassell currently serves in House District number 12. That includes Robertson, Madison, Walker, Grimes, Washington, and the east and south ends of Brazos County. Now, the candidates vying for that Republican nomination come March are John Harvey Slocum, Ben Bias, and Trey Wharton. Mr. Wharton joins us this afternoon. We are going to start talking about who you are and why it is you want to run for this race. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, sir.
So I grew up in Huntsville, went away to school to TCU, and then I came back to Huntsville with my wife, and I started my own business and insurance agency. And then as we were growing the business and raising a family, I was giving back to the community in several different facets. And I've had a lot of people ask me if I ever thought about doing this to give back on a little bigger scale than I've been doing.
There's a couple of things that we've been asking our candidates that we want to ask you about. One of the hot topics that have come up lately are the school vouchers. What's your take on that?
So I've been on the school board the last 8 years. I just resigned to concentrate a little more on this campaign. I'm for the school educational savings accounts, but you can't hurt the public schools in the process. And I think the last bill that came out of the Senate that the House didn't pass addressed several of the issues that the public schools had, and there was some accountability where the funds were going, and also there was a stop loss for the school districts, and it was more geared for the children that were economically disadvantaged, so you could really help some inner city school kids get out of some bad situations they were in.
Speaking of funding in schools, the state legislature in the last session passed a bill requiring a certain amount of security on each public school campus. But we've heard from public schools here in the area, College Station, Bryan, several others that have said, look, we would love to meet all these requirements, but the funding is a challenge, and we don't have the money to do everything that we want to do. How do you go about finding a solution for that?
Well, I mean, that is the obvious thing, because being on the school board, there were several unfunded mandates. They give you money on one side of the table, but take it away on the other and say, figure out how to pay for that. And the security was an issue that we had. Huntsville actually had most of the problems solved, but we did have to put in a new another officer that we hadn't already had in the plan in order to meet the requirements that the state had. So that's something that's going to need to be evaluated and make sure if we're going to have all these extra things put in, especially for safety and security, that we need to make sure the school districts are funded properly.
Let's say you get the Republican nomination, you go on to win the election. What becomes priority? What's on your list of must-dos if you get the seat in Austin?
Right, that's going to go back to kind of the way I've operated on all the different things I've been on, whether it be the Chamber of Commerce or the school or the hospital board. I go to the people that it's going to affect the most and find out from them. So I would need to come up with a legislative package and talk to the people in the different counties and say, hey, what is important? What do you all need? And then we kind of go from there so that I could serve them the way they need to be served.
What are you hearing from folks in your area that they would like to see lawmakers to enact on as soon as possible?
So, well, the number one issue is obvious. It's the border. And that we're not in the middle of it, but we kind of are, because everything's coming through District 12. We're going to see a huge growth coming straight up I-45, Highway 6, and 290, and that's going to affect every county in this district, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to work. The state officials, the county, and the local officials are all going to have to work together to kind of manage it, and that kind of goes back also the unfunded mandate of, we're capturing these immigrants that are here illegally, but then that's not funded by the state. It's actually the counties are having to pay for that. So that's another burden to the local counties.
We almost see this standoff between the governor and President Biden and the White House administration. Do you agree with everything that the governor's doing with Operation Lone Star and how he's
most
moving
definitely
forward with that?
Most definitely.
For folks who want to learn more about you, do you have a website? Where can they go to get more about your plan?
The website's whartonfortexas.com, and I have a Facebook page too, Trey Wharton for House District 12. So.
Coming out of his seat, Mr. Cassell, Kyle Cassell, who sits in that seat right now, is there anything that he has done that you would like to continue doing, or something maybe that he's done that you don't necessarily agree with, and you want to go back and maybe do something differently?
So the one thing that there's a lot of this district is rural,
Yeah.
And he was working diligently on the water issues, and a lot of the infrastructure is very antiquated, and it needs to be upgraded to help that out, because that's going to be a challenge, and the growth that's coming is going to test that system even more. And so I think kind of to move on with that and further that development would be great. And then the other thing is, all I can say, the only thing different I would do is you're going to see me and hear from me, and I'll be available. And the only way I know to serve people is for them to be able to be there for them and me to hear from them. So.
All right. Well, we heard from John Harvey Slocum yesterday. That's online at kbtx.com. We'll put your information in this interview online as well, and then we'll also hear from Ben Bias later this week. Good to meet you, sir.
Thank you. Nice
Good
to meet
see
you, too.
Yes, sir.
Thank
and
you.
We'll be back right after this.